its trade relations, Escolta, which is more about banking and being the first financial district in the entire country. So we will be showing you the introduction to Binondo. There. Okay. So its collections and museum programs revolve around Binondo as one of the oldest Chinatowns in the world. It's a misnomer to say that Binondo is the only and it's the oldest Chinatown because it is not. Actually, there's a Chinatown also in Indonesia and also a Chinatown in Cebu. And during those times, it really wasn't a written history, right? So we don't really know exactly when it started. Although Binondo started, the written history was on 1596. We could really say that even before the Spanish arrived, Binondo was already there. There was trade going on with the Chinese way prior. Also, the Arabs came in. But to say that it is the oldest Chinatown is really, we don't really rely on that. So we say it's one of the oldest. And what you are looking right now is letters y figuras. It's letters and figures. So this was an art form created during the Spanish times. And it you will see the tipos de país. Tipos de país is the types of the country. País means country. So you could see the tobacco, cigarreras people in letter B. We have religious influences, the Santo Cristo de Longos. If you are familiar with Binondo Church, this is at the side of Binondo Church, so you have that. We will be discussing, just in brief lang, the Tranvia, the Pansitero, which is the letter O. Of course, when you go to Binondo, you will see Divisoria. So those are the vendors, letter N and letter O. And during the Spanish times, we had the Cascos, which is on letter D. So we will be just choosing some few figures to discuss on in a bit. All right. So the topics that we will handle is about geography, history, and art. What exactly could you discuss about Chinatown Museum is these three topics. In geography, it's the strategic location near Intramuros, Pasig River, and Manila Bay, which means that because it is a port area, you have a lot of exchanges happening. Aside from trade, the exchange of language and also exchange of ideas. In terms of history, Binondo talks about really looks into the Spanish colonial period, Philippine Revolution, because here you have Gregoria de Jesus marrying Andres Bonifacio in Binondo Church. You do have Jose Rizal staying in Hotel de Oriente in Binondo. And American colonial period, you will also see the bombing, World War II, which we had an exhibition about. So most of this, we already have this in our website. If you want to know more. So for art, I showed you a while ago, we have letras y figuras, and we also have tipos de país. Just to give you a run through of our museum galleries, we have, you will see here, 17 galleries. That's all the way from mission settlement, the Dominican mission settlement, trade, colonial businesses, industries. Of course, we tackle Philippine Revolution, the Tranvia, and Binondo as the financial district. But for this brief talk, I would only like to highlight 4 galleries. More specifically, the Alcaiceria, which is the trading area during the Spanish colonial times. And it also is the last parian. For the industries, we will get to discuss more in depth on the tobacco as the cash crop. So if you are teaching social studies on the tobacco monopoly, banking industry, financial district, we will get to discuss it today. And the Tranvia. The Tranvia is it's a very good type for essay because during that time, we were really the envy of all of Asia because we were ahead of our time. But right now, you could see that we always have traffic. If not for the pandemic, you'd know that Metro Manila, because of its population, is just filled with traffic. All right. So the last one is Escolta, where we will delve into the businesses that flourished during that time. Okay. So for the first gallery, this is how it looks. This is the Alcaiceria, and it is a silk market basically. So this octagonal structure served as the last parian. You will see on our next slide that there really was a space for the ground floor shops. It was created octagonal in structure, like a bagua, no? Very Chinese. And its second floor was the lodging area for all the Chinese traders that would come in. So technically, if you look at it, yes, it is a nice structure, but it also was a way to contain the Chinese. So very ghetto-like. And within this alcaiceria, you could get to discuss topics on our next slide is the Spanish colonial history, world trade and commerce, and the galleon trade, which is the Tornaviaje. So as I mentioned a while ago, we do have a very strategic location where it's near Manila Bay. So once the galleons arrive, it goes before there was not much silt yet. Some of the ships could go in all the way to the Alcaiceria area where it also acts as an aduana, customs house. So one of the reasons why you also have Divisoria as the Bagsakan area was because also during that time, it already was a Bagsakan area. So you could see, port areas are very significant in a way. When you have economy thriving, you also have money coming in. And with money, banking comes in and so on and so forth. So everything was just a logical progression from Binondo during that time to the Binondo of what it was during its height, which was pre-war. And then after that, you have its decline and, of course, what we know of Binondo today, right? So just to check, I'd like to know if you think the Alcaiceria still exists today. You can either vote yes and or no, right? So don't vote or, it's just yes or no. Does the Alcaiceria still exist? Actually, the name Alcaiceria came from the Arab term al-gaiser. It's a silk market. So bagsakan siya ng silk and bagsakan siya of textiles. So right now, the bagsakan of textiles is in Azcaraga. It's Azcaraga Street in Binondo, and there you will find this entire area just filled with cloth. Okay? So I just like to check, do you think the Alcaiceria still exists today? Yes or no? Let's see your answers in a bit. This is quite fun because, okay, checking your answers, and it's 74% said yes, the Alcaiceria still exists, and only 44 people, that's 26%, answered no, it doesn't exist. The correct answer is that it does not exist anymore, although I'd like you to look at the octagonal structure there. That is the Alcaiceria floor plan. So you will see that it does not exist anymore, but right now it's Pedro Guevara Elementary School. So if you look at it bird's eye view, it still has its octagonal structure, but the school basically placed up buildings to fill in the space. So it's sad that it wasn't maintained. But then again, we're talking about, this was 1700 end of 1700. So all the way to it even passed through World War, there were a lot of things that were going on, right? So when we went in Pedro Guevara Elementary School, way back when we were creating the museum, I was able to see the last standing wall. Imagine that, eaten by an acacia tree. So it was not maintained at all and really sayang, But so if you'd like to learn more about the Alcaiceria, we have just recreated photos, illustrations of how the trade happened inside. Basically, there was a botica that was inside. So medicines were being sold, textile was even sold, ceramics. There were broken pieces of shards of ceramics that were there. And we talk about this more in the gallery. For our next gallery that I would like to highlight, it's the industries in Binondo. First is the tobacco industry born because of the tobacco monopoly. We're talking about 100 years, 1760s all the way up to 1860s, where the government made use of tobacco as a cash crop. And then during the height also, we have on the right side, you will see Binondo as the first financial district. We do have quite a number of banks that we highlighted at the same time, most especially Capitol Theater, which also became the Wall Street. Basically, it was the stock exchange center during that time. So Escolta was really very ahead in terms of it having the first air-conditioned mall, first banks, you have investment in terms of infrastructure, and the skyscrapers of the time would reach up to 6 floors during a time when there were really just structures made of wood, basically. There. I'd like to delve more into the tobacco monopoly, and you will see here that we have this collection. It was given to us by Ed de Los Santos. So you will see that most of our artifacts basically are already digitized. They're images. And that's why it was easy for us to transition digitally because we were able to put it up and create a story about it. You'll see most of this in our website. So if you would like to get more good resolution photos, do send us an email or get in touch with us through our Facebook account. All right. So here in the images that you could see, you could talk about two things. It's that Binondo was used really it was a mushrooming cottage industry filled with cigareras. The houses were being used as factories, and children, women, they would roll tobacco. So this was the main source of income of almost the majority of the businesses during that time. And the main goal really was to increase government revenue so that they wouldn't solely rely on the galleon trade. Once the tobacco would be arriving from Cagayan Valley, this is all the way up north, right? It would arrive in Binondo just for rolling, drying, rolling, packaging, and then it was sent out for exports, right? So the challenges here during the tobacco monopoly was that it was being abused by the government. So, kids would find this interesting because if you pace it also in a way where you could see Rizal's photos here, it was in a way very into the slowly people understanding that they were longing for Philippine independence. So Rizal's photos here were really pulling people, inviting people into Philippine independence, getting away from the colony. You could see on the right side KKK, so subliminal siya. Unconsciously, people that time, because there was no sense of advertisements during that time, it was really through the tobacco packaging. Right? After the tobacco monopoly, we do have La Insular Cigar and Cigarette Factory, and this is one of the areas highlighted in the museum also. So this is just right beside Binondo Church and also at the side of Hotel de Oriente. In La Insular Cigar and Cigarette Factory, you have cigareras working. They were the ones rolling it. And one of the trivias here is that in the next slide, you could see them being the main labor workers. All right. So for a time they even protested their minimum wage. These are very specific things that you don't really see in history books, but it's very interesting because this was I'd like to say that this was the call centers of the time. If you are a cigarera, that means you're earning your keep, you're earning your money, and in fact it uplifts them, no, that they could work on their own without having a husband, right? So for a long time, this really was their main source of livelihood. One of the things that we would also like to highlight in the galleries is the tranvia. In the tranvia, we have a horse-drawn one. There you go. And as I mentioned a while ago, one of the reasons why Manila was called the Paris of Asia was that it was a cosmopolitan city. So, and it really was the envy of most of Southeast Asia because it had an efficient public transport system. When everyone was still having uh, uh, not so efficient transport systems, we already had this, and then we were moving all the way to once the Americans came in, electricity also came in, and you will see here that it was an extensive mode of public transportation. So it went all the way up to Malate, from Binondo all the way to Malate and Sampaloc area. Also San Miguel. So it reached Malacanang. What does this mean and what does this say? This says that, as I said, we were ahead of our time. The population was still small, although there were research says that may a lot of people were really rushing to ride the tranvia, nagkakasikipan, but even then, it still was efficient on its own. Because you could see this, but we don't have this anymore now. So the next question is, what happened to it? Well, World War happened. And we did an exhibit last February. This was to look into the 75th 75th commemoration of World War II. We also discussed what happened to the tranvia there. So you will find these information in our website also. The last thing that I would like to really skim over are our trivia and our contents on Escolta. So here you have luxury shops, American Bazaar. You have German dispensaries, French luxury shops, and there actually are more. We delve into this and you could see photos of this also in our website. What does this say? This means that Chinatown per se, which right now equates to Binondo, but before Escolta was Escolta, Chinatown was Chinatown. But right now when we say Binondo, it means Binondo as a whole, and sometimes people even equate it to Chinatown as a whole. But back then, Escolta was the Makati of that time, which is kind of right now BGC. And in Escolta, you will see this. There were no malls yet, so to speak. There were shops. The shops were really where everyone would dress up and everyone would go shopping. But also because it was the Spanish colonial time, Chinese could speak Tagalog and also Spanish and vice versa. So everyone spoke Spanish. They taught in Spanish. They conversed in Spanish. But interestingly, the advertisements then were also multilingual. So we also have that, and it's one of the things that we will be pushing online also, how everyone spoke in different languages but understood each other, right? So just to correct perspective or perception that you have of Chinatown is that it was born during the colonial period, the business reversal.
So a lot of the shops at that time had multilingual advertisements. It had often, like when you look at the caption, you would have the details in English, Tagalog, and Chinese. So the ad is not written here, but we also have ads around the museum, which we hope to put up at some point, that talk about, it's a medicinal receipt where it writes down the instructions in English, Tagalog, and Spanish. So although we're called Chinatown, we are by no means a town of Chinese people. We in fact are a multicultural port city, and you will see this kind of phenomenon in a lot of port cities in the Philippines and around the world. So
thank you, Yuri.
Okay.
Thank you, Yuri. Sorry, I got cut off. All right. We do miss our visitors. So one of the reasons why we're doing this talk is for us to be able to bring the museum to the people. In our next slide, you could see can you hear me? Right. In our next slide, you could see that we have our tours here pre-COVID. So we really miss having visitors in the museum. So one of the reasons why we are doing this, our live streams and also pushing for digital content, is that we would really like to bring the museum to everyone. All right? How do we do this? You will see our online programs there. The articles that we have right now are on Beyond the Church, Beyond the Streets, Calle Escolta, Escolta Establishments, of course, Jones Bridge, and the Tranvia. We do have downloadable activities also for little kids. These are very good for kinder up to grade 2. Our live streams are right now in both Facebook and YouTube for History Matters and Museum Matters. This is all in partnership also with Iloilo Museum of Contemporary Art, which is our sister museum based in Iloilo City. So for collaborations, we do get to have speakers who are local historians, artists, history enthusiasts, and our coming slides later, you will be seeing the what we have in store for August and also for September. Okay, so for our website, you will see this, and you could get ideas for lessons. When you click on the Learn tab, there will be a drop-down button, and then you will see all of the topics which I mentioned a while ago. So, for example, when you click on Beyond the Streets, in our next slide, you will see the Learn and the etymology of the words. So why is it called Reina Regente Street? Why is it called Del Pan, Benavides, Juan Luna? Of course, it's because of Juan Luna. But before, we mentioned there that it was Anluwage, before Juan Luna even existed. Anluwage means carpenter. So these very interesting tidbits about how street names came to be is right there. Okay. Also for the Tranvia, what I mentioned a while ago, we have it. If you would like to talk about this with your students, we do have more photos which you could pull out. For our live streams and videos, we do have this in, please subscribe to Museums Matter. That is our Chinatown Museum videos. Okay. So for Wikang Pamana this August, we have something like this. We will be posting also etymology of the word. So for example, misik came from may in chick, and pansitero, piansit, came from pansit. It's Hokkien, so it means convenient food. Those are just some of our examples. You will have more of these if you follow our Facebook page. All right. Just to share really quickly, we have our August lineup for next August 8th, next Saturday. We have how contemporary art museum programs support blended learning. This is in partnership with Ateneo Art Gallery and Yuchenko Museum. For August 15, we have virtual urban sketch with Aurelio Castro III. This is very perfect for students and also artists. You could illustrate together with our artists. So our last one is on August 22, Eat Walk Talk with Binondo's Community Food Heritage. For September, you will see collections. We have cool collections, meaning so numismatics, all those who collect coins, bills, coins, you will have September 5 for that. And then Filipino blades. This will be shared on September 12. I'm also right now sharing our contact information. Please screen cap this or follow us. If you do have any ways to collaborate with us, any ideas, please get in touch through our email right there. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for that, Janine. Up next, we will be highlighting 3 museums from the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. So just to clarify, there are 27 museums by the NHCP, but today we will be discussing 3 of them. So our next speaker for the talk is Jonel Briñas Rabusa, who obtained his bachelor's degree in tourism management at the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, Santa Mesa, Manila. He entered government service in the NHCP as a museum guide at the Museo ng Paglilitis ni Andres Bonifacio in Cavite. In 2017, he served as the officer in charge of Museo ni Jesse Robredo in Naga City, Camarines Sur, after which he was assigned to be the curator of the Museum of Philippine Economic History in Iloilo City, NHCP's first museum in the Western Visayas area. Currently, Jonel is the shrine curator of Museo El Deposito, a museum focused on the history of Manila's former waterworks and water reservoir, based in San Juan City. So everybody, let's please welcome Jonel Rabusa onto our show. Jonel, let's get your talk going.
Hello, Yuri. Thank you for the introduction. So again, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Jonel, and I'll introduce to you to one of the museums of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, which is the Museo El Deposito, located at Pinaglabanan Memorial Shrine, Barangay Corazon de Jesus, San Juan City, Metro Manila. So let's now begin the flow of our history. Okay, about our museum, we just opened last February of 2019. We just actually celebrated our first anniversary weeks before the community quarantine. So again, we are one of the 27 museums of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. And to those who are asking, our museum is actually free of charge. You can enter our museum for free, and the rest of the museums of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. So our museum is actually focused on the history of the waterworks system of Manila and the El Deposito. So what is El Deposito anyway? So here's the question, why El Deposito? So before we answer that question, let me introduce to you to our official mascot here on the screen. You will see Med. So Med is actually based on the design of our logo. The reason why his name is Med is because the acronym of our museum is Museo El Deposito, MED, Med. So the waves that you will see in his body and his head symbolizes the waves of water. On the other hand, you will notice his mask. It's actually the Baybayin script Ka. So the Baybayin script Ka symbolizes kasaysayan. So we show here the kasaysayan ng tubig ng Kamaynilaan during the 19th century. So let's now answer, let's find out why El Deposito. So this is one of the collections of our museum. So this is a scale model of the Pinaglabanan Memorial Shrine where the museum is located. So you will see on the screen the yellow arrow that points out our building. So the Pinaglabanan Memorial Shrine is declared as a National Historical Shrine. So I think the next speaker will discuss that. So a closer view, you will see here the building of the museum. And if you've been to the Pinaglabanan Memorial Shrine, all you can see actually is an open field of grass and trees on the side. But actually, there's something underneath the Pinaglabanan Memorial Shrine. So you will see the lines in this scale model right here. You will notice those tunnels with lights. So these actually are the tunnels underneath El Deposito, which serves as the water reservoir of Manila during the 19th century. So let me give you a actual view of the tunnel. So this is the actual view of the tunnel underneath El Deposito. So a lot of people, akala nila parang open field lang siya pagdating sa Pinaglabanan Memorial Shrine, but actually there's something underneath. So the Pinaglabanan Memorial Shrine, where the museum is located, used to be as the El Deposito de Aguas. That's the reason why our museum is named Museo El Deposito. So it's the El Deposito de Aguas of the Manila Waterworks System, where the water coming from San Mateo River, which is now Marikina River, is kept and stored before being delivered to the parts of Manila and its suburbs or arrabales. So the El Deposito back then, the water reservoir of El Deposito has a capacity back then of 56,000 cubic meters, and it could provide water supply to 300,000 people. Back then, it was enough because back then, during the time of the 19th century, the population of Manila is around 290,000. Okay, so this is actually one of our collections. So we will show you the map of waterworks system of Manila. So on the map, this plan was actually made by Genaro Palacios. So he was the one that designed the El Deposito and the waterworks system. Now, another fact, Genaro Palacios was also the same one that designed the steel church of San Sebastian in Quiapo, Manila. So in his plan, the source of water is the San Mateo River and the Marikina River, which is pointed in a blue arrow on the right corner of the screen there. And in order to deliver the water from the Marikina River to the San Juan del Monte Reservoir, a pumping station in Santolan was built, particularly in the area now of Libis. And then after that, series of cast iron tubes were connected in order to deliver the water from the source to the reservoir and then from the reservoir to the destination, which is the parts of Manila. So you will see in the middle the San Juan del Monte. Now, the reason why San Juan del Monte was chosen to be the location of the water supply of Manila is because of the elevation of San Juan. If you've been to San Juan, mapapansin nyo, pataas or hill type yung geography ng San Juan. Kaya naging angkop yung pagiging hill type nito sa pag-store ng tubig ng Manila. And then para mas madaling ma-deliver yung tubig from the San Juan del Monte to the parts of Manila. So let's proceed to the next part. So these are the galleries of the museum. So we only have 3 galleries. So the first gallery is the Carriedo Waterworks. So here on the first gallery, we showed, of course, the water supply before the waterworks system, the donation of Francisco Carriedo, and the plans for the waterworks system. Before the Genaro Palacios plan, there were other plans that were studied before they come up with the plan of getting water from the San Mateo River. And then on the second gallery, we have the water reservoir. So this gallery shows the plans of Genaro Palacios, his plans of the building of the El Deposito, the pumping stations, and the series to connect the water from the source to the destination. And then on the third gallery, we also presented as a national shrine. So we featured here on this gallery what happened to El Deposito during the time of the Philippine Revolution, during the time of World War II, and then what happened to it when it stopped its operations. So let's proceed to the next part. So here are the collections of our museum. Most of our collections are historical and archaeological collections. When we say historical collections, these are artifacts that illustrates historical events, periods, personalities, etc. So here we have on the upper part, you will see some collections that shows the event of World War II. So, and of course, you will see on the other side the actual water hydrant that was used in the waterworks system of Manila during the 19th century. And we also have some collections of the commemorative coins and stamps that were issued during the inauguration of the water system of Manila. And then on the other hand, we also have the archaeological collections. The archaeological collections are objects with historical or artistic value from archaeological surveys that were happened here. So the UP Archaeological Studies made an investigation in this area in 2016, and these are some of the artifacts they got in the study during that year. And of course, we have some other collections. We also have some replicas and scale models of the parts of the waterworks system. We have some replicas of the water filters that were used before the water system was built. We also have the replica of the Corriedo fountain. And of course, we have a full view of the water hydrant because the one we showed a while ago, the original one, that was actually we loaned it from the Itambus administration. This, on the other hand, we featured the whole parts of the water hydrant. So you will notice there is a lion head on the water hydrant. So lumalabas yung tubig doon sa mouth ng lion during that time. And then we also have some digital photos and prints. We have the digital copies of the plans used during the time of the building of the El Deposito and the waterworks system that we got from the different archives in Spain. We also have some illustrations of Jose Jolonato Lozano and some copies of the photos from the John Pebble collection. Now, so we presented to you some of our collections. So we have some suggested modes of interaction that teachers can use in using the collections of ours in online teaching. So we have compare and contrast, recreate the object, observe and record, reflect, and create the narrative. So these activities are actually a part of the teacher's guide we are currently formulating right now in line with the shift to online learning. So our activities, we want it to not only to be hands-on, but also to be minds-on. Okay? So, okay, Paul, let me ask you first a question. Where do you currently get your drinking water? Is it A, source water refilling station? Is it directly to your water line system? Or C, from your deep wells, jetmatic pumps? So I want to know your answers. I think we have some viewers not only from Manila, but from different parts of the country. So Yuri, what's your answer in this poll?
For me, it's B. Yeah.
B, from your water line system directly.
Yeah. We do have a direct water line. We're fortunate enough. But I am very curious what it's like to have a deep well beside my house to get my water. Kayo po?
Well, me on the of course for drinking water, we usually buy from water refilling stations. I think most of the viewers can relate to me on that. And of course, on other use of water, we also have our water line system. So I think my answer is A and B. So let's see your answers. Okay, so most of the viewers answered letter A from stores and water refilling station with a 66%. And then second is from the water line with 21%. And then, of course, 13% of our viewers still have deep wells and jetmatic pumps still in their homes. I think mostly from the province areas, meron pa rin mga ganito. Okay, so let's now proceed to the next one. Okay, so this is the first activity. So this is compare and contrast. So we featured here the collection of the museum that shows an aguador. So the reason I asked that question a while ago, because I want to show you what is the source of water back then before the El Deposito and the waterworks was made. Back then in Manila, before the waterworks system was made, the source of water is in, of course, the Great Pasig River. So mostly they get their water in the parts of Pasig River. They preferred actually the parts of Guadalupe area of the Pasig River because for them, according to them, it's cleaner than the rest of the other parts of the Ilog Pasig. Of course, they also discovered different sources of water here in Manila. Like for example, the Dominicans discovered a spring in San Juan del Monte here in the location in the area nearby the museum. So they found a spring here in San Juan del Monte. And then, of course, other houses, some of the houses has their own water cisterns in their household. they usually collect rainwater in order to have water supply. So ito yung tinatawag nating alhibe. So yung mga bahay, may mga alhibe, they collect the water from the gutters in the roofs tuwing umulan. Ayan. So in this picture, we showed here a picture of an agwadot. So the agwadot is actually the one that delivers the water from the source to the household. So here in this activity, what the teachers can do is they can let the students compare how water was delivered back then and how water is delivered now. So in the picture, you will see the agwadot carrying two large tapayans or banga. And then on the other side, you will see a present picture of a man preparing his water delivery. So how are they different? How are they similar? So with this activity, compare and contrast, so by focusing students' thinking on analyzing pair of ideas, the compare and contrast strategy strengthens students' ability to remember the key content, which is nga how the water was delivered back then. So this kind of activity enhances the capability of students in applying past knowledge to new situation or events. So with this activity, we can make history more relevant to their everyday life. So dati, ang presyo ng tubig is around 2.5 to 3 centavos per tinaha. So the unit of measure of tinaha is equal to more or less 25 gallons. So ganun yung presyo dati ng tubig. And then kung ngayon, I think, for example, in this area, ang presyo ng tubig ngayon is 20 to 25 pesos per 5 gallons. Yung parang malaking bote na nilalagay sa water dispenser. So doon ma-differentiate natin yung presyo ng tubig at saka yung presyo ngayon ng tubig. And then dati, ang presyo ng tubig nag-iiba based on the source of water. Pag galing sa Ilog Pasig, that is 2.5 cents. Pero pag galing sa mas malinis na source, like for example, the San Juan Spring, it costs 12.5 cents. So nagkakaiba talaga based on the quality of water. So with this kind of activity, you can do it to your students para at least mas makita nila yung kaibahan ng noon at ngayon. So next slide. So of course, another activity that we can ask you to do is recreate the objects. So this model that you see right now is actually the model of water filters that was used during the 1830s and the 1850s. So these were designs made by the Gobernador General Pascual Enrile and Gobernador General Antonio Maria Blanco. During that time kasi, napakalaking issue ng malinis na tubig. So during that time, there was an epidemic of cholera in the Philippines. And because of that, the Spanish government was alarmed in the rising cases of the epidemic in the Philippines. That's why they asked everyone to filter their water. So with this filter water, what the students can do is that they can recreate history by recreating the water filters. So using recyclable materials, they can recreate the water filter design by Gobernador General Pascual Enrile and Gobernador Blanco. So they can demonstrate the finished product in the class. So itong water filter to, we made it a digital copy para mas malinaw. So if you will to the next part. So this is the digital copy of the designs of Pascual Enrile and Gobernador Blanco. So in their water filter back then, what they use is sand, coal, and then yung sinamay na tela, and then kumamit sila nung kahoy na may mga butas para masala yung tubig. So sinasala talaga nila maigi yung tubig para masigurado nilang malinis yung kanilang iniinom. Because back then, clean water is very crucial and it's very hard to get. So after filtering the water, ang gagawin pa nila actually is they will boil the water for 30 minutes. So ganun katagal para lang ma-make sure na malinis yung tubig na kanilang iniinom. So these are the artifacts related to the period where the El Deposito and the waterworks was not yet built. So if we proceed to the next part, here, another activity is observe and record. So this is actually one of our collections. This is the commemorative coin on the opening of the waterworks system. Actually, with this object, we could already tell the whole story of the inauguration of the waterworks system in 1882. So by observing and record, you can ask your students to observe the different markings that they see on the coins. For example, they will read Gobernando Filipinas and General Marquez de Estella. They will also read Carriedo y Municipio de Manila in the middle. And then they will see Reynando Alfonso XII. And in the middle, they will see Conmemoración de la Traída de Aguas Potables. And of course, they will see the date, 24th of July, 24 de Julio, 1882. So they can ask the students to have a research on this markings. Actually, since we're now on the online platform, we can ask the students to have research in the tip of their hands. Madali na ngayon mag-search actually sa Google as long to make sure na credible yung sources natin. So they can ask the students to have a research first on this, and then after that, the teacher can discuss what are those characters that they saw in the object. So for us to answer what are these markings all about, let's proceed to the next part. Okay, so una nating nakita, Gobernando Filipinas en General Marquez de Estella. So akala natin Marquez de Estella is a name, akakalain ng iba. Actually, the Marquez de Estella is a title. So this is the title of the Governor General of the Philippines during the time of the inauguration of the Manila Waterworks System, which is Fernando Primo de Rivera. So he was the one that inaugurated the Manila Waterworks System on July 24, 1882. So he also played an important role in Philippine history when he was the Governor General during the truce between the Philippine revolutionaries at the Pac of Biak na Bato. And then the next character that we saw is here, the Carriedo Fountain. So here in the Carriedo, you will see the name Carriedo. So who is Carriedo? I think a lot of people from Manila are hearing this name, Carriedo, especially when they ride the LRT, Carriedo Station, Carriedo Station. So actually, the name of the station is based on the name of this person, Carriedo. He is Francisco Carriedo y Peredo. He was the one who funded the building of the waterworks system of Manila by donating 10,000 pesos to the Ayuntamiento or the Municipio of Manila in 1733. So because of his donation, the waterworks became a reality for the people of Manila during the 1882. And then the next marking that we saw a while ago in the coin is the Reynando Alfonso XII. So who is Reynando Alfonso XII? So King Alfonso XII was the King of Spain during the inauguration of Manila Waterworks and the Carriedo Fountain. So that's why nandoon yung pangalan niya. So doon pa lang sa coin, nakita na natin yung mga people involved in that part of history. So on the next part, so here, you will see Conmemoración de la Traída de Aguas Potables. So it means the inauguration of the Manila Waterworks or the waterworks system and the Carriedo Fountain. So the inauguration of the water fountain happened on 24th of July, 1882. So here we have also a collection of the photo of the Carriedo Fountain after the inauguration of 1882. So we are actually preparing now some of our collections for it to be digitalized in order for it to be shared to you, especially to the teachers, in order for you to be used in your teaching. Okay. So in the last decade of the 19th century, there were 390 fountains and 280 hydrants. So ito po yung fountain on the left side and then the hydrants on the right side. Now, both the cast iron fountain and hydrants were from abroad. So they were made by the Andrew Hanneside and Co. in England. Okay. Okay, another question. So let's test your knowledge about the Carriedo Fountain. Our question is, where is the original Carriedo Fountain currently located? Again, where is the original Carriedo Fountain currently located? Okay, so here we have Sampaloc, Manila. That's letter A. Letter B, we have Santa Cruz, Manila. Letter C, is it in Intramuros? So I think people in the Manila part knows the answer. But I just want to test what is your answer in this question. So you will see here the fountain, the photo of the fountain. Actually, the centerpiece of the fountain was just added 2 years after the inauguration of the Carriedo Fountain. If you've noticed a while ago in the slide, you see that there was no centerpiece in the fountain. But the centerpiece was added 2 years in honor of Francisco Carriedo. So let me see what are your answers. So Okay? So I think some of you might be confused because maybe they have seen this fountain in a different area, I guess. Because actually, another fun fact: this is not the only fountain that has a design in the whole world. There are actually three of them. One is in Brazil, in the Botanical Gardens of Rio de Janeiro, and another one is in Singapore. So there are actually three kinds of this fountain. So let us see your answers. Okay, so most of you answered letter B, Santa Cruz, Manila. Okay, your answer is correct. It is in Santa Cruz, Manila. It is currently located at the Plaza Santa Cruz. So if you proceed to the next part. Okay, so this is the history of the water fountain of El Deposito. So in 1882, it was inaugurated at the Rotonda de Sampaloc. It is now the area of the Nagtahan interchange. So if you will notice back then, as I said a while ago, there was still no centerpiece fountain on the part of that area. It was just added 2 years after the inauguration. And then during the 1970s, the fountain was relocated. So from Manila, from Nagtahan, it was relocated in Balara, Quezon City in front of the MWSS building. I think some people who are viewing right now in Quezon City are familiar with this fountain. Now, on 1995, the original fountain was brought back in Manila, but this time it was not placed to its original location in Nagtahan. Instead, it was placed in the Plaza Santa Cruz. So I think people, especially in nearby Chinatown area, are familiar with this fountain in front of the Santa Cruz Church. Now, a lot of people, especially the people in Quezon City, might be wondering, so what is the fountain that they're seeing right now in front of the MWSS building? So actually, that's a replica of the fountain was made by the national artist Napoleon Abueva. So when the fountain was brought back to Manila, a new replica of the fountain was made in order to be placed in front of the MWSS building that we still see now on that part. Okay? So let's now proceed. Okay, so another fun fact about the El Deposito, so it brought water to the whole part of Manila. So it was a huge deal for them to have a clean source of water. But during the wars, it was also used by the Americans and the Japanese. The El Deposito also played a huge role in the Philippine Revolution that I think will be discussed later by our next speaker. So here we have the collection of an M1 helmet liner that was found inside the tunnels of El Deposito. So you will notice in the helmet, you will see the name Walls. So the students can actually create a narrative on this part based on the facts that we have that are presented at the museum. So the question is, who is Walls? So the students can actually make a possible story, an intelligent guess on who the Walls is. So with this activity, the students were able to have critical thinking to know who Walls is, what are the possible events that happened to him during that time based on the actual timeline of events that happened here in El Deposito. So the El Deposito was used during the 19th century up to the early 20th century. And then it stopped its operation during the 1920s, especially when the Wawa Dam was opened. So it became a base of the Americans during the World War II and the Japanese as well. So the tunnels, they cut the water source from the Santolan pumping station in order for water to stop flowing here, and they created the tunnels into an armory. So that is the role that El Deposito made during the time of the World War II and the Philippine-American War. So you will see here on the picture on the other side, some soldiers above El Deposito guarding the water reservoir. And then lastly, of course, our very objective in this museum is actually to teach the students on the history of the water system of Manila, how it affected the people during that time. At the same time, we wanted to show the importance of water, sanitation, and sustainability. So here we have a reflection part. So here we presented to you a replica of the water filter used by the family of Jose Rizal. Yes, the family of Jose Rizal also used a water filter system. So this is a big stone And what they do is they put the water on top of the big stone, and then they wait for the water to drop at the bottom of it, just to make sure that their water is clean. So this is the question for the students that you can do. So do heroes need water, clean water as well? So yes, of course, everyone needs water, and our heroes are no exception to it. So we want to show here the importance of a source of clean water for everyone. And we also want to show that heroes needs water as well. They're humans as well, just like us. And then another reflection question we can do is, what will happen if there was no clean water available during that time? So magkakasakit ba lahat ng tao pag walang clean water? So this is the kinds of question that the students can answer, can reflect to. And then the best question we can ask them, is it easier to have access to clean water now comparing to what we have back then? So dito mas magkakaroon ng idea yung students na pahalagahan yung tubig na kanilang ginagamit sa pang-araw-araw. Kasi when they learned history, they found out that it was very hard for them, for the people back then, to have a clean source of water. So those are the kinds of activities that we can do using our museum collections. So we're still working at it to add more activities. So of course, our teachers can also contact us if they want to have copies of our audiovisual presentation. So our audiovisual presentation has sign language interpretation on the side. So this video is a 5-minute video that shows the history of the Carriedo Waterworks in El Deposito. So we also have an available video. So this is a 360 virtual reality video of the Battle of San Juan del Monte and the Battle of Pinaglabanan. So the battle, El Deposito was very crucial back then during the time of the revolution, because the Katipunan wanted to take over the water system of Manila. Because for them, he who controls the water controls the power. Because the very main seat of the Spanish government is the water from El Deposito. That's why they want to take over the El Deposito back then during that time. So this video is very nice. If you, it is actually available in our NHCP page and our museum page in the Museo El Deposito. You can visit that. Okay. Other digital materials for learning, we also like you to visit our website, the National Historical Commission of the Philippines website. It's www.nhcp.gov.ph. So on our website, we have an online resource materials, like for example, some copies of the Filipinos in history that you can check out. And of course, if you want to use some films related to history of Bonifacio, Emilio Ginaldo, Apolinario Mabini, and about martial law, you can have these videos at the official YouTube channel of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. Of course, our museum exhibits, we have two exhibits so far since open. We have a photo exhibit about the Wawa Dam, so it's entitled Traversing the Current. And then we also had an exhibit and lecture about the bridges of Manila during the Spanish period. So we invited back then speaker architect Manolo Noche. And of course, our online programs, last Heritage Month and International Museum Day, we had a museum exhibit entitled History at Home. So what we did, we invited our museum audiences to share to us their collections in their homes related to water. And we were very glad to see very awesome collections. For example, right here, someone shared a banga with a tabo. And then yung tabo actually is made of the coconut shell and then a branch of the tree. So ito yung dati nilang ginagamit to store the water. And then someone also shared to us some old pictures from the 1960s. And of course, they shared to us some of the water canteens used during the World War II. So the reason why we made this kind of program is we want to make their homes an extension of our museum. So they can discover some of the materials they have while they're in quarantine, and then they'll find out na, wow, ganito pala yung gamit namin noon, na ganito pala yung kwento noon, hindi lang pala siya basta gamit. So people realize the importance of artifacts and collections in telling a story and telling their history. So we can suggest that teachers can do that as well as an activity for their students to try to ask their grandparents for some objects related to, for example, World War II, the 1960s, 1950s, and have a show and tell online. And of course, we have some art workshops entitled Too Big at Sining. So last year we had an art workshop, but this year we wanted to, but because of the community quarantine, what we did instead is we had an online art exhibit. So the next slide, you will see there, the online exhibit we have is actually ongoing. So if you still want to submit some of your artworks, you can still submit it to us. This is the Too Big at Sining sa Tahanan. We shared some of the watercolor artworks of our audience in social media. So we are posting our artworks every Tuesdays and Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, MWF. So you can still submit it to us. Of course, you've seen a while ago MED. So actually, MED is our part of our information campaign. So we have this program titled MED's Water Packs. So MED's Water Packs, we share different facts about the water history, sanitation, and education through a comic type presentation using MED. So you can check this out every Tuesdays and Thursdays in our official museum page. Also, we also have some lectures and talks that we made this year. For example, we have the uncovering the history underneath, the making of the Museo El Deposito. This is actually in celebration of our anniversary last February, weeks before the community quarantine. So we had a talk with the people involved in that manner. So of course, we have the Kilapsaw. So not only we want to promote history, but also we want to promote water safety, sanitation, and education. So we invited two of the water concessionaires in Manila, which is Manila Water and Maynilad. So last year, we have Manila Water to talk about water safety. And this year, we had Maynilad. So on the next part, you will see there our online program that we did last June 6 this year. So we have the webinar on water sanitation and safety. We invited focal persons like the Manila Water Academy and doctors from San Lazaro Hospital to talk about water sanitation and sustainability. That we do believe that is very timely, especially now in this time of pandemic. Okay, so we are now using online platforms in our different events in order to connect to our audiences. So we also have back then special tours and seminars in partnership with Maynilad Water Academy. Back then we have the Ugnayang Tubig at Kasaysayan. So we connect history with the water. So Ugnayang Tubig at Kasaysayan, so this is a program made for student leaders in Manila. So they are being toured in the different parts of Manila as well, like Intramuros and of course here in San Juan. And we also have the Junior Water Camp designed for STEM students to know about how water was delivered back then and how water is delivered now through the different water concessionaires. Okay, so next part. Okay, so this talk is actually very timely because today, August 1, this whole month, we are celebrating the Buwan ng Kasaysayan or National History Month. So our theme for this month is Pagkakaisaysayan sa Paglaban at Pagbangon. History of Unity and Struggle and Recovery. So we have a lot of programs installed for this month. So kindly check the official Facebook of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines at facebook.com/NSGP1933. So please check that out to see the different events we have for this month of August for History Month. Okay, and then of course, on the next part, we also want to present to you our contact details. So of course, if you have any questions about museum, if you want to have partnerships with us, if you want to have some copies of our digital materials, you can contact us at 7753-5439 and you can email us at museoeldeposito@gmail.com. And of course, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Museo El Deposito. Okay, so that's it, guys. So thank you for listening. So I hope you learned a lot in our talk. So again, feel free to contact me in my contact details if you have any questions about the museum, the waterworks system of Manila, and if you want to have collaboration projects. Maraming salamat.
Thanks, Janelle. So that was a very informative talk. If you would like to incorporate water into your lesson plans, please do get in touch with Janelle. They're very open to collaborations. So up next, we have Christian. So Christian Melendez earned his degree in history from the University of the East Manila. His career in museum work began in Museo Pambata, where he started out as a museum guide and was later promoted to be its head museum guide. Currently, he is the senior shrine curator of the Museo ng Katipunan Pinaglabanan Shrine in San Juan City. So everybody, let's welcome in Christian. Hello.
Hi. Magandang hapon, isang maulang araw sa mga kapwa ko katipon. Ako nga po pala si Christian Melendez mula sa Museo ng Katipunan. Ang ating discussion ay tungkol sa mga artifacts ng mga bawat museo ng NHCP. So doon tayong iikot yung ating kwentuhan. Okay, simulan natin sa Pinaglabanan Memorial Shrine. Ang Pinaglabanan Memorial Shrine ay isang 5-hectare shrine and it was declared as a national shrine noong 1973, August 1. So in time then today. Okay, bakit siya ginawang historical site? Kanina it was mentioned by Mr. Junel na meron tayong reserva sa ilalim, no? Pero bukod doon, ang Pinaglabanan Memorial Shrine kasi na ito is yung kanyang historicity. So we have the El Depositor, the water reserva, and at the same time, noong August 30, 1896, yung Battle of Pinaglabanan, the first battle for Philippine independence, dito naganap sa lugar na ito. So meron po tayong dalawang markers na in-install dito sa Pinaglabanan Memorial Shrine. So first, we have the Pang-Alalang Damba ng Pinaglabanan or Pinaglabanan Memorial Shrine, and then yung sa El Deposito nga. Itong dalawang markers na ito, before we proceed, meron tayong poll. Sa tingin po ninyo, sinong government agency ang may authority para mag-conduct or mag-install ng ating mga historical markers? Okay, so meron tayong mga choices here. First, we have the National Museum, and then we have the NCCA, and then yung NHCP. So, we want to hear you, audience, kung ano yung gusto ninyong, or ano tingin niyo yung tamang sagot. Sinong government agency yung may authority to install historical markers? Okay? So, mamaya babalikan natin yan. Alam natin yung sagot. Okay, next slide is Spirit of Pinaglabanan. So, within the Pinaglabanan Memorial Shrine, makikita natin itong sculpture by the late Eduardo Castillo, yung Spirit of Pinaglabanan. For those familiar with Mr. Castillo, yung kanyang mga artworks usually stretch. Okay, so hindi naiiba itong Spirit of Pinaglabanan. So it was also built and erected sa loob ng shrine noong 1973. Okay, at tinayo nga siya para din sa pag-alaala sa mga katapangan ni Andres Bonifacio at ng mga Katipunero. And then, noong 1996 po, meron po tayong itinayo na Museo ng Katipunan or Museo ng Revolusyon in time dun sa centenary ng Battle of Pinaglabanan. So it's the precursor dun sa latest na Museo ng Katipunan. Sa slide po natin, okay, next slide please. Okay, ito yung larawan ng Old Museo ng Katipunan, yung first na Old Museo ng Katipunan. And inside, makikita dito yung mga facsimile and mga replica ng mga Katipunan items such as bolo, antiente, mga medallion, etc. And then, noong 2013, as part of the modernization project ng museo ng NHCP, we opened a new and modernized museo ng Katipunan. So what can we see inside museo ng Katipunan? As I said a while ago, as part ng modernization ng mga NHCP museums, lahat ng mga museo po ay ginawang interactive and kaya-aya sa mata. So kasi before, pag sinabi natin na museum, nakakatakot, parang eerie feeling pag pumasok. Pero sa mga NHCP museums such as Museo ng Katipunan, ginawa pa natin modern and then mas presentable pa yung content ng bagong Museo ng Katipunan. Okay? Okay. And then bago tayo magpatuloy, no, let's check the survey. Okay, ulitin ko lang, no, what government agency is in charge of approving and installing historical markers? Okay, so some of you answered National Museum, 10 of you, 7% yun. NCCA, some answered, so 17 people, 17 viewers, so 12% siya. And then some naman answered na NHCP, consisting of 116 viewers or 81%. Actually, the correct answer is the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. Bayad din sa Republic Act 438 nung na-establish yung Old National Historical Commission. Isa sa mga mandato na ibinigay sa kanila ay magtayo o magkabit ng mga historical markers. So, isa sa mga trabaho nila yon ng NHCP kami, if an individual or private sector magre-request sila ng mga ng review, and then pag-aaralan ng NHCP, and then kapag na-determine na may historical value yung lugar, yung bahay, kunwari, kakapitan nito ng historical markers. So yun basically ang trabaho isa sa mga trabaho ng NHCP. Okay, so we shall continue, no? Okay, so museum narrative naman ng Museo ng Katipunan, ng bagong Museo ng Katipunan. Basically, as the name implies, ang Museo ng Katipunan po ay patungkol sa mga Katipunero and syempre kay Andres Bonifacio na rin. Dito makikita natin yung iba't ibang mga koleksyon, mga interactive exhibit na pwedeng gamitin ng mga teachers kapag sila ay nagturo ng kasaysayan, and particularly sa Katipunan. Ito yung mga halimbawa ng aming mga interactive exhibit. So we have yung nasa upper right corner niyo yung ang Tondo de Bonifacio. So touch screen siya. So pwedeng i-scroll ng mga bisita. Sa lower right, yung tungkol naman sa mga sagisag ng Katipunan, yung mga flags, mga seals na ginamit ng mga iba't ibang sangguniang bayan. And then yung sa upper left, makikita natin yung mga bata, no, while watching or while looking sa mga armaments ng Katipunan. And then sa lower left, yung kartilya at dekalogo ng Katipunan. So basically, as I said, hindi lang siya for the eyes ng mga bisita, yung mga content ng museum. And then, bukod doon, ang mga content ng museum ay yung narrative text stated in English and Filipino. And meron pa mga visual aids. Okay? Ito po yung mga panghalimbawa. So makita natin, meron din kami mga interactive exhibit pa. Meron kami tinatawag na augmented reality na makikita niyo sa lower right corner. Kung saan dito parang pinapakita namin, pinapalanta namin sa mga bisita yung feel ng Battle of Pinaglabanan. And then, dito naman tayo sa mga museum collections. So, we selected lang mga few museum collections ng Museo ng Katipunan. So, iba itatago namin para pag nag-open ang Museo ng Katipunan after this pandemic, meron pa rin kayong makikita sa loob ng ating museum na hindi nyo makikita ngayon sa ating discussion. So, the two of the bolos na nandito, no, ng weapons is yung dagger sa left. Ang dagger usually ginagamit yan sa mga initiation rites ng Katipunan. Siguro sa iba, no, hindi tayo aware. Kapag ang mga Katipunero nagkakaroon ng initiation rites, hindi sila naghihiwa sa poles. Okay? So usually dito sa area na to. Okay. And then the other one, yung bolo, yan naman usually ginagamit nila sa pakikidigmana. So kumbaga from farmland to warland yung kanilang yung sistema dyan. Okay? Another collection ng Museo ng Katipunan ay yung amulet vest. Okay, sa amulet vest naman, kasi ang mga Katipunero naniniwala sila sa bisa ng ating anting. So kung makikita nyo sa halimbawa ng vest na yan, pinagsama-sama ng mga Katipunero yung kanilang paniniwala, yung prior, yung pre-colonial, tsaka yung pagdating ng Maxtila. So nag-fuse na yung kanilang mga belief. So yung sample niyan makikita sa kung ano yung mga nakasulat sa vest. Okay. Another collection sa Museo ng Katipunan ay yung bust ni Andres Bonifacio, ni Gregorio de Jesus, and ni Jacinto. Kung makita niyo po siya sa personal, it's medyo malaki siya sa tao. Okay? And then ito pa yung gawa ni Miss Julie Luch. Ito pa yung mga new acquired collections ng Museo ng Katipunan. So kapag kami nagdi-discuss ang mga famous katipuneros, kasama sila sa aming mga i-discuss. And then, bukod sa mga sculptures, pwedeng po kami mga monochrome sketches ng mga katipunero. So we have actually 20 of them, pero nagpumili lang kami ng 4. So we have Macario Sakay, Emilio Aguinaldo, Jose Dizon, and Marina Dizon. Macario Sakay po, no, na si Macario Sakay, siya yung isa sa mga huling katipunero na sumuko, and then pag suko niya, ng time ng mga Amerikano, siya ay in-execute. Yung haba ng buhok niya, panata niya yan na kumbaga parang hanggat niya tapos yung bigman, hindi siya magpapaputol ng buhok. And then we have Emilio Aguinaldo, yung presidente natin, Atty. Andres Bonifacio. Dito siya ni Miss Paulette later. And then yung mag-ama na si Jose Dizon and si Marina Dizon, they are actually related kay Emilio Jacinto. Jose Dizon was one of the founders of the Katipunan and one of the 13 martyrs ng Bagong Bayan. So nung nagkaroon ng revolution, nagkaroon ng mga paghuhuli, isa si Jose Dizon sa mga nahuli, and later on, bitay sa Bagong Bayan. Si Marina Dizon naman, na-survive niya naman yung revolution and namatay siya at old age. And then, meron siyang important role sa Katipunan, actually sa women chapter ng Katipunan. So, mga taga-tago ng mga dokumento kasama si Gregorio de Jesus and taga-cover sila sa mga meetings ng mga Katipunero. Okay? And next, before we proceed again sa ating sa lecture, magkaroon tayo ng panibagong poll, no? We would like to know, audiences, who is your favorite underrated katipunero? Kasi we know of Andres Bonifacio, Emilio Jacinto, and ano na lang, pili kayo. Gusto namin malaman kung sino sa 4 na pinakita namin yung favorite underrated katipunero. Okay? And habang kayo bumoboto, balikan na lang po natin sila at move tayo sa ating next slide. Sure. Okay. Sure, sige. Pero let's proceed na sa next slide. Ayan. Ito naman po yung mga samples ng mga painting or collection din ng museo ng Katipunan. Ito po ay magawa ng ating mga local artists. This one, ito po ay gawa ni Mr. Pancho Piano, a painter from Bicol. This painting, nagdidepict siya ng tungkol sa buhay ni Andres Bonifacio. So, central sa painting ay yung pagkapanganak niya. The next one ay yung tungkol naman sa revolution. So once again, si Bonifacio yung centerpiece ng kanyang painting at ito pinapakita kanyang iba't ibang scenery sa revolution. Next, another painting of Pancho Piano. We have ang dapat mabatid ng mga Tagalog. Actually, this painting is an artist rendition no ang dapat mabatid ng mga Tagalog ni Andres Bonifacio. It's an essay. So makikita niyo no, nagkumuha tayo ng excerpt dun sa essay ni Andres Bonifacio. And then ang tinutukoy diyan yung lower left ng painting. So kumbaga parang ang dapat mabatid ng mga Tagalog ni Andres Bonifacio, tinatalakay niya kung ano yung naganap sa Pilipinas bago dumating ang mga Kastila, noong dumating ang mga Kastila, at kung aalis ang mga Kastila nung panahon nila. So yung sa pinili natin na excerpt, yan yung dumating ang mga Kastila, nangako sila ng kung ano-ano, ng magandang buhay. Pero later on, kahirapan pala ang bigay nila sa atin. And then another one, ito naman ang ibang painting naman to. Ito yung preparation ng mga katipunero sa digmaan. Ang painter po nito ay si Juanito Torres. For some, kung hindi niyo pa siya kilala, no, ang isa sa mga trademark ng kanyang painting ay yung aso. So for this particular painting, makikita po ba natin yung aso? Nakita niyo ba? Yan, nandun sana sa ilalim ng isang lalaki. So basically yan. Ngayon, ito po yung mga halimbawa lamang ng mga collections ng Museo ng Katipunan. So hindi pa namin pinakita lahat para surprise sa pagbabalik. Ngayon, ang tanong po, which is yung umikat sa ating topic, no? How museum artifacts are utilized in teaching history. sa amin sa Museo po ng Katipunan, we are using several factors, or we are considering several factors sa approaches ng sa pagtuturo sa mga bata nating mga collections. Basically, we have to understand that Museo ng Katipunan and other museums also ay a place for alternative learning. So, ikumpara din sa eskwelahan na merong four corners of the room, meron siyang specific subject na itinuturo sa specific level ng mga bata. Dito po sa Museo ng Katipunan, we are expecting na sa isang bagsakan, meron kaming haharapin na iba't ibang level ng mga bata. Yung syempre yung kanilang bilis din, okay, ganun sila magtatagal sa museum. So yun po yung mga kinukonsider po namin. So basically, una po yung types of service. First, ito po yung usually binibigay ng Museo ng Katipunan, tour guiding and public programs. Then kapag tour guiding naman po, we consider, tinatanong din namin sa mga bisita, especially kapag nagpapabook, anong grade level. Before po, ang mga museums pa ng NHCP, we're not accepting grade 4 students and below. Kasi since ang tema po ng ating mga museums ay history, mahirap siyang ipaintindi sa mga bata. No? Pero since kami nag-modernize na nga po, naglagay kami ng interactive exhibits, nagkaroon kami ng iba't ibang approaches, so, nagtatanggap pa rin po kami ng mga grade 4 pababa na mga estudyante. At doon po papasok yung ating iba't ibang style. So, halimbawa po, dun sa kung grade 4 pababa, ang ginagawa lang po namin ay yung tinatawag namin expository tour. So, kunwari, pupunta sila sa museum, sa Museo ng Katipunan, itinuturo lang namin kung ano yung mga itsura ni Andres Bonifacio, ni Gregorio de Jesus, or kung meron sila mga tawag, Supremo, Katipunero, mga ganyan. Kasi in that way, we are hoping na somehow merong magiging merong maiiwan sa kanila. Kasi mahirap naman talaga ituro sa mga bata na grade 4 pababa, yung kunwari yung complexity ng Katipunan, yung mga dark history, etc. Now, for public programs naman po, we are following this guide sa pag-conceptualize ng mga public programs. Since we are targeting all audiences, kumbaga parang kailangan is sa buong taon makapag-book kami ng mga programa na makapag-provide sa lahat ng grade level or readiness ng mga tao. So ito pong sa ating slide, makikita natin yung ginagamit namin para maggawa ng mga public programs in line or na nakadepende dun sa target audience namin. For example po, commemorative events, usually we have 3 commemorative events na ginagawa sa loob ng Pinaglabanan Memorial Shrine. We have the Independence Day every June 12, Battle of Pinaglabanan Day, August 30, and Bonifacio Day noong every November 30. So usually, ang aming target audience sa mga commemorative events ay general public. Okay? And then kung gusto naman namin mag-target ng programa para sa mga college levels and mga professionals, we do lecture po. So mamaya makikita po natin yung mga sample. For workshops, depende rin po yan. Kung ang target natin is high school students and above, we do photography, art, tour guiding, and writing workshops po. And then kung sa mga estudyante naman from the elementary, we do painting, clay molding workshop. Or kung ano pa mga workshops na pwedeng i-apply sa mga bata, or madaling ituro sa mga bata. For traveling din po, depende rin po yan. Mamaya makikita natin kung ano yung mga sample na pwede sa mga adult, then meron para sa mga bata. And then contest, usually para po, depende ulit yan kung photography ulit, graphic design contest, etc. And then meron kaming specific na ginagawa every 2 years na programa for mga elementary and high school students. Ito yung team Palakasaysayan. Basically, dapat meron kami for this year, 2020. Pero since may pandemic, lahat ng aming mga public programs ay kinancel muna. And then we have yung mga special programs tulad ng mga heritage tours and other collaborations. Okay? Sige po. Ito, dadaan lang po natin yung mga museum programs ng NHCP, ng Museo ng Katipunan. So, meron kami before yung Bulalas, spoken word poetry workshop. And then yearly, nagkakanta kami ng baybayin workshop. So, uso ngayon yan. So, meron kami partner from San Juan City na nagkakanta ng baybayin workshop. And then, Pintig, dito naman po, ini-introduce namin yung mga ethnic musical instruments na unti-unti na nakakalimutan ng publiko. So dito, reintroduction, tapos pinapatutug namin sa mga participants. Ito naman po yung mga lectures na ginagawa namin through the years. Itong mga nakaraang taon, meron kami mga sesquicentennial lecture series. So yung mga lesser known Katipuneros na nagkaroon tayo ng kanilang 150 years, both kina Bonifacio, kina Rizal, sinelebrate din natin through lectures. And then yung mga God activities din po natin. No? So first, meron tayong history vlogging na ginawa noon. And then for Women's Month, nagkanta kami ng lecture about sa mga kababaihan sa Katipunan. And this activity, ito yung mga para naman sa mga kabataan. So, yung Malikhaing Kabataan sa Pinaglabanan, ginagawa rin namin siya every 2 years. And then, kung mapapasin nyo yung the past activities namin yan, pinagawa namin yung mga bata ng anting-anting sa clay, ng mga bolo sa clay, and then nagkaroon kami ng painting workshop at yung 2 sample yung nasa baba. And then, ito po yung aming mga traveling exhibits, yung A Moment for the Monument. Ito naman ay patungkol sa monument ni Anas Bonifacio sa Caloocan. So mostly narrative text to. So applicable siya sa mga older audience. And then we have here yung palarong Katipunan sa inyong kanan. Dito naman makikita, ginawa namin ng snake and ladders form, yung mga events sa Katipunan. So kapag maganda yung nangyari sa Katipunan, up, yung mga medyo marubdob, yung medyo malungkot, down. So nakadisplay siya sa loob ng Museo ng Katipunan premise. And then tour guiding workshop, and then yung San Juan City Heritage Tour. Na before kasi nagkaroon kami ng pag-iikot sa loob ng San Juan City. So lahat ng mga historical sites sa San Juan, inikot namin. And then, last 2 years or 3 years, nagkaroon kami ng Pinaglabanan. So, tinema namin sa pangalan ng shrine. Tungkol sa love. Okay? And then yung team palaksaysahan niya po, ito naman para sa mga audience natin, grade 4, high school and pababa. So contest siya para siyang mini Olympics na nag-participate yung mga estudyante natin. And then as I mentioned before, commemorative events, Brave Independence Day, Battle of Pinaglabanan Day, and Bonifacio Day. And this time of pandemic po kasi na-cancel lahat ng mga programa ng NHCP, ng Masaya ng Katipunan. So ang aming only option para makakonect pa rin sa ating mga bisita ay through online. So this pandemic, nag-conduct muna kami ng mga mini activities sa aming Facebook page. So pwede nyo siyang i-check later. So for example, we have our crossword puzzles na lumalabas every Tuesday and Wednesday. Tuesday yung tanong, Wednesday yung sagot. Yung word hunt naman, na may short description, lumalabas siya every Thursday and Friday. And then every Saturday and Sunday, lumalabas naman yung, ito, kunwari, who's that Katipunero? Pahulaan nyo kaya siya. And ang mga clue natin, graduate siya from the University of Santo Tomas, College of Medicine. Member siya ng Kamara Negro ng Katipunan at isang lungsod ang ipinangalan sa kanya. Bukod doon, naging gobernador ng Bulacan noon. So mahulaan ba siya? Mamaya balikan natin. And then nagpo-post din kami ng yung mga memes. Ayan, kumaga para makasabay tayo sa uso. Kaya tulad yan, akala ko salita sa Cry of Pugalawin. Sagot ng bata, naiwan ko po ang sedula ko. And then yan, yung mga memes sa sumikat noon na applicable sa Katipunan. So yung mga lighter side lang na Katipunan na pinupost natin. And then yung mga online commemorations while we are using the museum collections, yung mga halimbawa. So from left to right, Cry of Pugalawin, 150th birthday ni Pio, yung birthday naman ni Bonifacio, and then last yung birthday ni Emilio Jacinto. And then we also have National Flag Days noong May 28, June 12. And then ginawa namin online yung supposedly na history walk tour po namin. Ang Museo ng Katipunan din po is open for collaboration. So ito yung mga past collaborations namin. Yung nagkaroon ng lunar eclipse, nakipagtayo kami sa Manila astronomers para doon mag-contact sa shrine ng stargazing. Tapos yung mga tree planting activities, storytelling session, and then yung fire prevention naman. And then ito lang nakaraan, yung in line with the celebration or commemoration of hepatitis, nag-ilaw ang mga museo kasamang Museo ng Katipunan ng green sa aming mga ilaw. Ayan. And then, nabanggit niya kanina, today is the start of the History Month. And ang Museo ng Katipunan po yung mag-launch ng sa mga sumusunod na mga programa sa buwan na ito and sa mga susunod na buwan pa. So we have 2 Katipunero in focus. We will feature Pio Valenzuela and Macario Sakay. Gagawin din po namin online yung Malikhaing Kabataan sa Pinaglabanan. And then we will also launch a comic strip featuring Lolo Donato and Bolo bonito. Yes, and then so before we end the discussion, balik tayo dito. So, sino kayo makahula ng tamang sagot? Who's that katipunero? Ang answer ay, he's Pio Valenzuela. So, recently in July 11, nag-birthday siya. Nag-end na yung kanyang 150th birth commemoration. Okay? And then, balikan din po natin kanina, no? Who is your favorite underrated katipunero? So, according to you, viewers, ang pinaka-paborito niyong underrated katipunero ay si Emilio Cinto. Ayan. So, to end my discussion, okay, ito po yung mga contact details ng Museo ng Katipunan. So, if you want to inquire about the museo, so you can ask us sa mga sumusunod na mga contact details. For now, bagamat nag-GCP na po ang Metro Manila, no, we're not still opening the doors of Museo ng Katipunan. So, we will still continue yung ating mga online activities. And then kung meron po kayong mga inquiries, mga katanungan pa po, mga clarifications, you can contact us po niya sa mga naibigay po na contact details. Yun po.
Thanks, Christian. Last but not least, we have Paulette. She has worked in different historical and arts museums, including Museo de la Salle and Museo Orlina in Tagaytay City. Her museum experiences range from research, collections, management, exhibitions, and museum administration. So just about everything. A graduate of arts management from the University of the Philippines, Manila, she is currently the shrine curator too of the Museo ni Emilio Aguinaldo in Kawit, Cavite. So, Paulette, hello.
Hi, Yuri. Good afternoon, everyone. Maraming salamat, Yuri, for the introduction. And it's great to have this online platform to help us continue to share the mandate of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines to promote Philippine history and cultural heritage. But before anything else, allow me to give you a background of the Museo ni Emilio Aguinaldo in Kawit, Cavite, which is one of the 27 museums of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. So the museum is the ancestral house of Emilio Aguinaldo, revolutionary and president of the First Philippine Republic. He was born and raised in this house. So the original structure was built in 1845 using bamboo and thatched materials. It was built as a family home of the Emilio's parents, Don Carlos Aguinaldo y Jamir and Doña Trinidad's family. So to accommodate their growing family, by 1849, the house was reconstructed using limestone and hardwood. It's very similar to the traditional bahay na bato, and it was dubbed the House of History because the Aguinaldo House witnessed an important event in history, which is the Declaration of Philippine Independence on June 12, 1898. So there's a question, Yuri.
So Paulette asked us this during the rehearsal. Where did Emilio Aguinaldo declare the Philippine independence? Is it A, the garden, B, the balcony, C, the window, or D, the front door? So I think there are two slightly obvious answers. But there was a fun fact that Paulette told us that definitely changed my initial answer. So ayan, where do you think you can hold the Declaration of Independence? Is it on a garden party? Is it on your balcony? Is it on a window? Is it on the lobby, the front door? Just have a gate and then open it, and then that's where you have the declaration. Please answer it in the poll. We're very, very curious to find out. So Paulette, do you have, you know the answer.
Yeah, I know the answer.
But before you worked for the museum, was your answer different?
Well, I think I'm quite old, so probably I've seen a photo somewhere that it's different from the facade that we see now.
Yeah.
So I think there's the answer, Yuri. The poll is out.
Okay, so most of the people answered balcony. 66% answered balcony, to be followed by 34% window, and then 0 for garden and front door. Okay, please tell us the correct answer.
It is at the window. Because for those who's familiar with the 5 peso bill, it featured the proclamation of Philippine independence at the reverse side, showing Aguinaldo waving the flag at the window. But this photo in the slide is actually an artist's rendition of the event, and it's one of the closest to what really happened based on accounts, because it was really Ambrosio Riazares Bautista who read the Act of Proclamation of Independence while waving the flag. So the house became a revolutionary abode as it joins the revolution in 1896. And that's the time when Aguinaldo became a general. And of course, that event in 1898, the proclamation of Philippine independence. And then after the revolution, Emilio Aguinaldo was captured in Isabela by the Americans. He eventually retired as a private individual in his house. So by the 1920s, major renovations were done. The tower was built. A common structure added to some of the houses during that time. And it was also around that time that the famous balcony that we see today was constructed. It was a reminder of the historic event that took place in this house. And then when you go visit the Aguinaldo Shrine, you'll see a lot of nationalistic symbols because Emilio Aguinaldo also embellished the house with symbols such as the sun, the stars, or even the Philippine flag. In 1963, a year before he passed away, he donated the house and the land to the Filipino people. So this one is a photo of Emilio Aguinaldo signing the deed of donation on the occasion of his 94th birthday on March 22, 1963. So looking at the right is Mrs. Maria Agoncillo Aguinaldo, his second wife. And when Aguinaldo died the next year, which is 1964, a month after, President Diosdado Macapagal issued Executive Order number 73, assigning the care and custody of the Aguinaldo Mansion to the National Museum. But it was only Republic Act number 4039, enacted on June of the same year, that officially named the Aguinaldo Mansion as a national shrine. But in 1972, President Marcos issued another executive order, number 370. It formally transferred the custody of the Aguinaldo Shrine from the National Museum to the National Historical Commission, which is now the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. So from then on until the present, the Aguinaldo Shrine had several renovations. But the major renovation took place before 1998 because that was the time that the country celebrated the centennial anniversary of the Philippine independence. And then at that time, the lot in front of the house was converted into the Aguinaldo Park. And in 2015, when the National Historical Commission of the Philippines had its modernization project, the Aguinaldo Shrine opened as the Museo ni Emilio Aguinaldo with interactive exhibit at the ground level. So the house has 7 floors, but 5 of these you only access through the tower. There is only 2 levels that is open to the public. The house is the ground level. It's the museum. It houses the exhibition of the life and the contribution of Emilio Aguinaldo to the nation. It has 4 galleries, and it presents the Cavite during the Spanish colonial period. It also shows the revolution against Spain until the proclamation of the independence, and it covers the aftermath of the revolution until the Philippines War against the United States. And then the second level, which is the living space of the house, which is very similar to the traditional bahay na bato, is a there's the living spaces. So there's the living room, the bedrooms, the dining area, the kitchen. Every room's living space can be found on this second floor. And these also houses the 19th century and early 20th century furniture and details of the Art Nouveau and the Art Deco. So very notable are the mesa altar, the large dining table, anti-beds, secret compartments. And then visitors, when they come visit the museum, they would ask, well, how come there's a lot of furniture in the house? Like there's so many tables and chairs. And this is because Aguinaldo entertained a lot of people, and he opened his home to a lot of personalities like diplomats, politicians, and especially the veteranos, who are the veterans of the revolution. So with our collection, there is also this table. This is a very large, huge table in the dining area. It's made of one singular wood slab. It's a gift to the general by a furniture factory, Gonzalo Puyat, on his 73rd birthday. And beside it is a mesa altar made of kumagong, and it was made in 1722. There's
Okay,
another
so
pop question, Yuri.
how tall is Emilio Aguinaldo? Is he 5'1"? Or is he 5'2"? Or is he 5'3"? Or is he 5'4"? So Paulette, can you give us some context as to why 5'4" and below yung height ni Emilio Aguinaldo?
Because when people will ask whenever there's tours and they see the personal effects on the ground level, they will ask us na how come it's the uniforms or the clothes are really small. So the range is really low because medyo ano siya, medyo maliit. Obviously.
So just for context, no, Jose Rizal is also, I think, 5'2" or something like that.
I think, oh my gosh, I think smaller, yeah.
Yeah, he's also not very tall. So when you like see these great history men, diba, sometimes, oh my God, siguro like he's 5'9" or 6 foot. But then like when you see their things in scale, it's like,
Yeah, like if you're a general in a revolution, you'll think that these guys are really tall. Like when you go into the military, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it was also very strange for us when Paulette was like, okay, like this is his actual height. And we're like, huh, really? So yeah. So if you're 5'4", I think that's on the taller end of the spectrum. So, okay. So the results are out.
Yes.
41% think he's 5'2", 25% says he's 5'1", 18% for 5'4", and 16% for 5'3".
And he's 5'3".
He's 5'3". So he's around my height.
Yes. Taller than me. So like this is the uniform that he used during the revolution. It's called the Rayadillo. And then beside it are the other collection. We have a boots and the salakot. And then this one is portable picnic box with plates and spoon and fork, which can transform into a small table when you need to use it outside. So the museum also has a collection of different weapons during the revolution, such as that shown in the picture, the bolos, the arrows, and the rifles. So usually they would have guns only when, like the revolvers, when they're members of the Masons, or like they gathered it from the battles won. So this collection of the museum, the artifacts, are usually the point of discussion whenever we have do educational tours. But aside from the tours, we also have public programs such as commemorative events, lectures and exhibitions, and other educational programs. For Maya, we have 3 commemorative events. We're celebrating his death anniversary in February and his birth anniversary in March. And then every year, every June 12, we're part of the nation's celebration of Independence Day. And then for the lectures, the Museo ni Emilio Aguinaldo has 2 annual institutional lecture, an artist talk during the National Arts Month, which is February, and then Cavite Saysayan in November. For the artist talk, we had na Azong, that's the slide earlier. He is a crochet artist, and we invited him because crochet art was a common skill learned during the 1900s. But as an artist, he elevated the craft into an art form. And then Ramon Orlina, the glass sculptor, talked about built heritage in his hometown, Taal, Batangas, and his advocacy to keep those built heritage alive. Just last February, we had Khalil Banyares for directing history. He talked about film and its role in educating the viewers about history. For Cavite Saysayan, this one is focused on history, culture, and arts in Cavite. So for the past 3 years, we had, next slide please, we had Mr. Jeff Lubang who discussed Panchon. It's the tradition of burying in Cavite. So tradisyon ng paglilibing sa Cavite. We have Dr. Jakes Medina who talked about the fashion during the time of Aguinaldo, moda sa kanyang panahon. And the last one we had last year was Dr. Manny Calayro, who shared gintong aral sa buhay ninyo. So this year, because of the pandemic, we are shifting online. So instead of doing the regular lecture, we're doing it like this one through Facebook, and we'll have the lecture of Miss Rosani Recreo Cerile on Cavite artists as film icons in Philippine cinema. So aside from that, we also produce changing exhibition for our returnees. Kasi parang when they come back to the museum, they'll see another exhibit, not just our permanent exhibit. So normally we'll also have 2 exhibits a year, one in February for National Arts Month, and then another one in October for the Museums and Galleries Month. Some of our exhibit is this Not Art by Miss Bernadette Solino Wolf, titled She Drew It in a Nutshell. We also had a historical exhibit, 1869, Cementing the Road to Independence. And then Identity on a Shifting Landscape, that gave a glimpse on the different roles of the Aguinaldo Shrine in its 175 years of existence. Last February, we opened our latest exhibition, In Transition, The Baby Bus of Cavite. These are photographs of Caviteño artist Heinz Raymond Orais. We opened it in the middle of February. So the exhibit run was cut short because it was supposed to run until May, but because of the pandemic, we resorted to bring it online. So if you want to check out the exhibit, it's still up in our Facebook page. So you can like our Facebook page and view the exhibit from your home. So we also have collaborative programs with other institutions. Like these 2 programs that I'll be discussing are the programs that we had in celebration of the 150th birth anniversary of Emilio Aguinaldo. The exhibit Sinag, Tracing Emilio Aguinaldo's Palette with Museo de la Salle and Tige Ramos Design Studio. This one is interesting because we were able to get the help of multimedia artist students of De La Salle University to do the exhibit featuring infographics on the history of food and its relation to Aguinaldo's concept of the nation. For the next collaborative program, we have Sa Aming Tahanan, a first-person interpretation program which is created by Fundación Santiago. It runs as a special tour of the house wherein the guests are assisted by a facilitator to different locations in the Aguinaldo Shrine. In these locations, they would meet several characters. Well, 3 characters during different period. We have one, the mother of Emilio Aguinaldo, Doña Teneg, and 2 composite characters, Berto, the veterano, and Caridad, the house help. So visitors will get a chance to interact with these characters, and they can even ask questions afterwards. This is very engaging for students and even adults because we received a lot of interesting questions during its run, like, mabait po ba na anak si Nyong? Or ano po yung paborito niyang pagkain? Or si Aguinaldo ba ang nagpapatay kay Bonifacio? Which the mother cannot answer because the year you'd meet her will be 1886. And around that time, Emilio Aguinaldo is around 17 years old. Also, this program was supposed to run until June this year. And nakat din siya because of the pandemic. But Fundación Santiago is looking on the possibility of bringing it online. So also, please like their Facebook page, Sa Aming Tahanan, for updates. We also have an annual bloodletting activity during History Month in partnership with the Philippine Red Cross Cavite City Chapter. So I'll be focusing on our educational programs. It's very quick. We only have 3 to show you. These educational programs we were able to conceptualize as a result of a training facilitated by the NHCP in 2016. So we had a training History Museum as a learning tool. From there, the participants were trained to create lesson plans using museum objects and materials. So we were able to come up with various programs which are object-based, such as Hablamos talking artifacts. So Hablamos is the conjugation of the Spanish word hablar, which means to talk, because we animated 12 of our collections and allowed them to talk and share their stories before they became museum objects. So each object shares something about itself, and they share their stories before they became museum objects. And they will relate trivia that is actually related also to the present. So these allow the students to see the importance of studying museum objects as a relic of the past, but still relevant today and to the future. So, to further engage, we produce comic strips, which we also uploaded in Facebook. So, you can also check it out. It's all in one um, album. So, you can check all the 12 comic strips that we produced in 2017. And during the time that it was running, we also printed these comic strips. So when you visit the museum, you could actually get one and bring it home. This one is one of the successful programs of the museum in terms of cost cutting because the artists were all pro bono. So these are friends of the museum or NHCP friends. Yeah, and also the Ablamos also included a pocket exhibit. So every month, each artifact will feature in a specific space in the museum, accompanied by a recorded speaker, which actually talks, and a caption which you can read. So after the 12 featured artifacts, we exhibited them the year after through the exhibit Repaso Hablamos in Retrospect. Since the some of the objects in our Hablamos program were huge and even attached to the ceiling, we opted to make a mobile application that you can download and listen to while going around the museum. So that's the picture of the students with downloaded application and going around the museum listening to this artifact talking. So another program that we did, which is an educational program, is Kawit on Foot. It is a walking tour designed for kids, which reintroduced Kawit, the town of Kawit, as Cavite El Viejo. So Cavite El Viejo is the old name of the town, which it took during the establishment of the port of Cavite, which is Cavite City. So the activity aims to guide the students to identify the significance of the places that they're going to visit in the social historical context of town. So it allowed the students to imagine and explore um, the lifestyle of the Caviteño during the Spanish period and connects it to the value of the structures and industries from the past to the present and to create awareness and pride and eventually concern in the preservation of our local heritage. This is a very good introduction to the history of the town for kids because they were given an interactive map, the slide before. So they have an interactive map with tasks and location to visit. So the facilitator will identify the correct answers of each task given. The first stop, of course, is the Aguinaldo Park, where they are tasked to count the total number of flags. And the answer will be 100 because the park was built during the centennial celebration of the Philippine independence. So then they will proceed to the other location, which is the St. Mary Magdalene Church, the Pandayan, and then in the Pandayan, they will try to hammer the blades of the bolos, and then the last stop will be the Aguinaldo House, where they will listen again to an Ablamos artifact, which is the Neveras or the ice box, and answer an evaluation and test afterwards. The project is also online, but it's more of an infographic rather than an activity format. And the last program is Layaw, Experiential Learning Using Museum Artifact. This one utilizes History Museum as an alternative classroom for learning. The aim of the program is to engage the students in analyzing a museum object beyond its aesthetic and external value. So this will allow the students to experience the objects using other techniques that will heighten their senses and develop analytical thinking. So our first object that we used during the program is a painting by Vicente Dizon, The Battle of Zapote. Instead of just discussing what happened during the Battle of Zapote, the students were given an activity sheet, the one that you're seeing right now. And then for the first part of the program, for the first part of the activity, they will be asked the gawain one, bilugan ang mali sa larawan. So what's wrong in the picture? So instead of you seeing arrows flying at the background, you'll see missiles and other weird objects in the painting. So there's also an activity of you drawing the weapons that you see in the museum and getting the information from the caption. So after this, the facilitator will introduce the artifact and discuss the topic, which is the weapons of the revolution. the students will share the weapons they drew and the information that's available in the museum. So basically, Layo is giving freedom to the students to learn on their own while you're inside in the museum. Of course, guided by the worksheet and facilitated by either a curator, the museum guide, and eventually, if the teachers can do this by themselves. The second object, just to give you another artifact, is Inang Bayan. It's a relief found at the ceiling of the Grand Hall, and the program included a short film of the proper respect of our national flag. The activity includes word hunt of the images and the objects. Like this one, there's the word hunt. And you will look for the images and objects that you can see in the Inang Bayan relief. And then they will also be provided with crayons to give color to Inang Bayan and how they interpret Inang Bayan when they try to color it, kung masaya ba siya or malungkot ba siya, things like that. So Layo is our attempt to produce lesson plan for teachers to use as an alternative way of teaching Araling Panlipunan. We had a roundtable discussion with the Araling Panlipunan teachers in Kawit under Miss Susan Aquino and then Miss Cecil Galicami of Museo de la Salle because her thesis was OBL or Object-Based Learning Approach. So they find the program interesting, but we realized that the problem was logistic. So sabi ng mga teachers, when they do the discussion, it's probably around the same time. And when they come to the museum discussing a certain topic in their curriculum, they will come in bulk and the museum will not be able to accommodate them. So what they suggested was we bring the museum to the classroom. But at that time when we were producing the program, what we thought was we really wanted to bring the students into the museum. So with this pandemic, we realized that indeed the idea of bringing the museum to the classroom and probably online will continue the learning process and at the same time make museum matters and relevant, diba? So we are tweaking the program a little to make it applicable in the blended learning being introduced now to our museum programs. And maybe our museum programs will be an alternative teaching material or something to augment the learning process. So, sige, please wait a little as we adapt to the new normal in terms of our educational program. But as of now, during our GCQ, we produce online programs for everyone to check out on our Facebook page. We have the engaging post, Sino Ka? Next slide, please. Which is asking the audience kung kanino ka mas nakaka-relate sa object. Like, for example, this one, ikaw ba yung nagbibigay ginhawa na si Atay Bed? Or ikaw ba yung maaasahan na si Ben Botikin? So, with you choosing, there's actually no wrong answer. So, pag you choose lang, we will relate that value of the artifact to the value that you will learn in studying the life of Emilio Aguinaldo. So like for example, ikaw yung nagbibigay ginhawa because Emilio Aguinaldo gave a help to the veteranos after the revolution, things like that. So while our doors are still closed for visit, we open our windows through our program Behind the Cookies window, the Maya collection. So in this one, we are featuring a lot of our collection with their descriptions and news and other interesting trivia. And speaking of trivia, there's also a trivia post, which is Akalain Mo, Aguinaldo, Kasaysayan, at ako, featuring trivia about Aguinaldo, the house, and everything na makaka-relate ang mga tao, giving us a glimpse of the life of the historical figure minus the dates, the events, and making them more human. Like this one, si Aguinaldo din ay nagpapagupit just like all of us. So please like our page. You will see a lot of our programs there. And then like this one, we had a lot of videos that we posted from the programs that we facilitated throughout the years. And in case you find anything interesting, you may contact us through our website, through our email address and Facebook, the Facebook account. So para we can help you use our program in your teaching Philippine history to the students. And also we are in Instagram and Twitter. It's all Aguinaldo Shrine. So please like and follow us. Those are our details. You can email us at museonieemilioaguinaldo@gmail.com and our contact details there. So that's it. Maraming salamat po.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Paulette. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. You can get your certificates through a link by Vibal that we've pinned on the comment section and have also put on our event page. If it's not yet up, we will put it back in later. You can catch our next live stream on August 8th at 2 p.m. at the following pages at Vibal Group, Chinatown Museum, and Iloilo Museum of Contemporary Art. Our next show will be on how teachers can use... Oh, hold on. Before that, here, in case you want to screenshot it, is a list of all our contact details. So if you want any kind of educational material from us, the best way to contact us is through email. Everyone's pretty responsive. We can attest to that. So if you have anything that you want from us, we can surely give it to you. Okay, so our next live stream next week on August 8th at 2 p.m. You will be able to find it on Vibal Group, Chinatown Museum, and Iloilo Museum of Contemporary Art. Our next show will be on how teachers can use museum programs from contemporary art museums in digital learning. So this is different from all the other things we've done because this focuses on the programs that are already up and running. The event page is in Chinatown Museum, but we will also publish it later with Vibal. We encourage you to RSVP it on the next few event pages so we can keep you posted for updates and the release of certificates. So thanks for tuning in and have a great day.